Okay, so I want to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Caroline Harmon Darrow, who is a new assistant professor here at Rutgers University School of Social Work and also serves as a community mediator for 24 years. So I'm excited to hear this presentation on conflict resolution and how we can actually use this in our work as social workers. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Harmon Darrow here to jump in and go ahead and get us started. And I'm going to be quiet. So I'm excited.
Hey, me too. I'm so excited to see how many people are here. It's so fantastic. And it just goes to show that this is kind of a universal piece. So we're going to start with a gathering, and I'll go ahead and share my screen just to go give you a little preview of what we'll do together today. Um, can you see the agenda? All right, so our gathering is to say, and we want people to get through everyone because we have a huge group, but we're going to get through people who are willing to talk. So we have name, pronouns, and the way my family of origin handled conflict was. So we'll go around and you just do popcorn style, pop when you're ready. Next, we'll talk about brainstorm. We'll do an exercise called brainstorm conflicts. So this is all going to be interactive throughout the whole hour and a half today. And then we'll do skills training in inclusive listening, which is listening for feelings, values, and topics. And we'll do 2 breakouts practicing that skill after we practice it on me as I demonstrate in character. All right. So that's how we're going to handle today. And then I wanted to just give a preview of next time. When we meet in 2 weeks. So this is definitely a 2-part workshop. The first part is today for 90 minutes until 5:30. And the second part is in 2 weeks on the 15th, also from 4 to 5:30. And in that one, we're going to say, do a gathering, our name and pronouns, a strength I bring to conflict resolution. We'll do a training on asserting yourself with nonviolent communication, and we'll break out and practice that. Then we'll talk about 5 approaches to conflict and end with some skill training in brainstorming and making agreements. So the next exercise we're going to do is we're going to talk about the word conflict. We're going to do a word association. So let me share my screen again. Dun-da-da. And can you see the word conflict? Okay, we're going to do a word association. So I want you to think about the last conflict you had. So now we're not talking about our family of origin. We're thinking about the very last conflict we had with our spouse, with our family member, with our coworker, whoever it was. Close your eyes for a moment. Think about what it felt like, what each person said and did, how you experienced it, how people reacted, and then open your eyes and say, what are all the words that you associate with the word conflict? And just shout them out. And I'll type them up as fast as I can.
Sadness,
Anger,
dysfunction,
disregarded,
betrayal,
defensiveness,
the fear,
What
stubbornness,
was that? What was the one after defensiveness?
fear,
stubbornness,
unapologetic,
hurt,
shame,
run or hide,
Sometimes it could be dehumanizing.
stressful,
shocking,
What's that?
shocking, exasperating,
stressful,
I think I missed one.
stressful,
disappointed,
There was stressful that came in too, Caroline. And we
Thank
have a
you.
host of them in the chat as well that I
Oh,
can
okay,
read
let me
off to
check
you
that
if you
out.
want me. If you want me to, I could just read them to you.
That would be even better.
Yeah, we have stalemate, dysfunction, confusion, uncomfortable, overwhelming, there's not trusting, emotional, and tired.
And resentment.
Okay, what do you notice about this list?
Oh, and resentment. I'm sorry. I thought that was on the other side. Was that over there? Resentment was the other one. I'm sorry.
What do you notice about this list?
They're not very positive emotions.
Yeah, a lot of not very positive stuff. What else do you notice?
Intense. There's an intensity to a lot.
Yeah, definitely, Charbel, so much intensity in people's experiences of conflict, especially when it's with people that are very close to us. What else do you notice?
Patricia in the chat said the list doesn't include resolution.
Okay, it doesn't include resolution. So we see a list that is pretty negative. Are there, and that it doesn't include words like resolution. So we'll go ahead and add that. But what do we see on here besides the word resolution? What do we see on here that is a word that is maybe not necessarily negative though?
Emotional.
What's that?
I said emotional.
Okay, so when things get emotional, it is not necessarily negative. Are there any other words that are already on here that we don't think are necessarily negative?
I don't feel like unapologetic is necessarily negative. You can
Okay, how so?
I think there's certain conflicts that it's okay to not apologize about. I don't know.
Absolutely, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's about standing up for what you believe.
Yeah.
What else could maybe potentially not be necessarily negative?
There's the word to run, and I'm thinking more like of like, you know, like that includes like walking away to me, and
Yeah.
not necessarily a negative thing. Like sometimes conflicts, you know, means that a person has to walk away.
Absolutely. There is a time and a place for all different types of strategies to deal with conflict, and sometimes running or hiding or walking away is absolutely the thing to do. To stay safe, or even to protect the relationship in that time. What else is not necessarily a negative word?
Stalemate.
How so?
I think of a stalemate is, agreeing to disagree, and that's not necessarily negative. You don't, resolving a conflict doesn't always mean you have to go one way or the other. It's just sort of sometimes hearing and recognizing.
Yeah. Thank you. So just identifying differences of opinion and being able to coexist with them doesn't necessarily have to be negative. What else is not necessarily negative here?
Not trusting.
How so?
I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're in a conflict with someone and like maybe they did something to like break your trust, I don't know if I like see that as like necessarily negative. It's just kind of I don't know, like a realization.
Yeah, sometimes you realize that it's not healthy to trust that person in these sets of circumstances. And that can be a positive to learn that coming out of it. What else is maybe not necessarily negative,
Resolution.
right? So we added that one. That is coming to a positive place through conflict. What else is not necessarily negative on this list?
Stubbornness isn't necessarily a negative thing.
How so?
If you're engaging in conflict because you believe there's a real injustice being done, being stubborn can be a real asset.
Right. So thank you for bringing up injustice. So conflict can be in our families, in our relationships, in our friendships, in our workplaces. It can also be between parts of society, and people can rise up in governments can rise up in conflict. And so when we think about conflict, we are first of all talking about something that is as common as the rain. It is something that happens to everyone all the time, in all the seasons of our lives. And when I talk and train about conflict, we train people to think about conflict as a neutral force, a neutral energy. You can either light a match to it, or you can use it to power your car. It is not something that is inherently necessarily negative. It can lead to a clash that can bring about better results later, that can bring about new justice or new fairness in a relationship or in a society. And there are times when, for example, someone needs to be stubborn and stand up for what's going on. We talked about if things are emotional, they're not necessarily negative. It's not necessarily a negative thing that someone express some sadness and be able to do that or get their anger out. And so what are some other words about conflict that we don't really think of as negative? Some positive aspects of going through conflict.
I think it brings about change. Like when I think about my clients or my own work with addiction, there's a lot of conflict there, but it opens up the world for really good discussion and can bring about change.
Okay, so it has the potential to bring about change, to open things up, to create discussion. What else? What are some not necessarily negative parts about it?
I think it can, if done right, can increase like understanding of the other person and potentially like intimacy. Like maybe you can't really have intimacy without conflict.
Yeah, if you have come through to the other side of a conflict with a close friend, you are probably closer to them, probably more intimate with them, and have potentially built understanding.
How about
what else? Something that's not necessarily negative?
Liberating?
How so?
When you express your feelings in a conflict, if something's bothering you, it might not change anything, but just getting it out there and not keeping it bottled up can be very liberating for an individual.
A lot of people talked about in their families things being bottled up. So the feeling of getting it out, the feeling of working through something. Okay, so one of the things to also keep in mind about conflict and conflict resolution is that if you see conflict as all negative, and you come to it and you've been told by society that this is a weakness, particularly if you were raised as a girl, that there is a stigma about having conflict, expressing disagreement, expressing anger. And so if we come into conflict thinking it is necessarily bad, it's always 100% bad, then it's a really quick leap to something must be wrong with me and something must be wrong with them. Whereas if we come into it saying, this is as common as the rainfall, this is something that happens to everyone. I'm heading into a conflict now, and I have a lot of choices about how to deal with it. And I don't know if it's going to turn out better or worse than it did before, but the experience of having a conflict is not necessarily negative, then we're going to have really, really different results. Just that one attitude shift can be really, really, really powerful. So that's one of the things that I as a community mediator try to talk about a lot in communities. Okay, so what I want to do next is teach the skill of inclusive listening. And so we have and we're going to take the whole rest of our time to do that. I am going to put some handouts into the chat, and it's basically a Google Drive. And so you should be able to click on that and see all the handouts. So please let me know if that works. And if you get in, if you could just like put a hand up so that I know it worked for you. Great. I am also going to put the actual document in the chat in case someone has trouble with the Google Drive. The Google Drive has a whole bunch of different things that we'll work with over the 2 weeks. All right, so the first thing I'd like you to do is to open the one that is for reading aloud, and we're gonna read around in the group. And we're gonna talk about the skills of inclusive listening. So inclusive listening is basically taking a position, dividing it into 3 components: feelings, values, and topics. So we're going to read some details about that as a group, and then we're going to practice it on me, and then we're going to practice it in small groups. Okay? So here we go on inclusive listening. Who is willing to read aloud? Charbel, thank you.
You're welcome. 1 second. I'm just waiting for my Word doc to open up. Okay, from the top, right?
Yes, please. You can read just like the first paragraph.
Okay. Inclusive listening is the process of listening to a positional statement and breaking it into 3 parts: feelings, topics, and what's important. Hearing people in this way helps you to work on understanding what they are saying without judgment.
Great. So this is a particularly non-judgmental form of listening, and it is not about summarizing the person's position. It's about reflecting back only the feelings, values, and topics to be resolved that you hear. So it's particularly good for conflict resolution, and it lays the groundwork for problem solving and non-judgmental decision making. Who can read next?
I'm happy to read the
Oh, I
next.
can read the next one.
I think I saw Crystal.
Okay, so you can read right after me. Okay. Positional statements are usually insults, threats, possible solutions, or angry statements that focus on the past and blame someone for the problem. Examples of positional statements.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
Yes.
Okay, she's such a slob. Her crap is all over the place. I'm not picking up after her anymore. He's a liar. He never tells me what's really going on with my son, and I'll take him to court if I have to. He'll never see that kid again if he doesn't change. If he doesn't turn down that music, I'm going to kill him. If you could follow directions, then we wouldn't have these problems, would we? I was fired because I am a woman standing up for my rights, period.
Okay, these are all positional statements. And in inclusive listening, we are not going to reflect back the positions. We're not going to summarize the positions. We're not going to reframe the positions. We are going to hear them and understand them and let them be, and reflect back only the feelings, values, and topics to be resolved that we hear. Who can read next? Debbie?
Feelings are emotion words reflecting the degree of intensity people express. You want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Make sure that you listen for the feelings that people are expressing, not your opinion of what their feeling must be. Example, speaker, I'm sick and tired of her wearing clothes that she knows will attract all the attention from the men. I try to keep clients from coming to our office in hopes they don't see the way she dresses. I have a nice body too, but you don't see me coming to work dressed that way. Avoid your opinion about what the speaker is feeling. She's jealous, envious, etc. Listen for feelings that are expressed by the speaker. Fed up, embarrassed, and proud. Example of feelings: angry, disappointed, sad, hurt, betrayed, proud, upset, disgusted, pleased, confused, and surprised.
All right. So here we're looking for the raw emotion word, not the analysis that we might do, not sort of diagnosing what we're hearing, but just giving back the feeling words, the raw emotions that they themselves are sharing, not what we think might be underneath it. So that's the first section of what we're going to practice reflecting back. Who can read about topics?
I can go.
Great. Can you read the whole topic section?
Sure. Topics are generally one-word tangible items. Topics should be framed using non-judgmental language, which does not take either person's side. We're listening for concrete topics. Help avoid judgment because you are hearing in a way that removes the blame and focuses on things people may want to make plans about. So example is, you harass me constantly. Don't you have anyone else to talk to? Every time I turn around, you are posting to my Facebook page, emailing me, or stopping me in the hallway for mindless chit chat. Then when I check my voicemail, you filled half my inbox with messages. Leave me alone and get a life. Avoid your idea of the problem based on the speaker's blame language, harassment. And here, the non-judgmental frame of this topic, which is communication. When naming a topic, check through the topic grinder. Someone is talking about having conflict around this thing. Is it specific or concrete? It does not blame anyone. It does not take anyone's side. It does not set up, yes, someone should, or no, someone shouldn't. Example is like cleaning the house would not be a topic. Example of topics would be like parking, housekeeping, communication, trash, the alley, clothing, schedule, dog.
Okay, so in conflict resolution, we're looking for non-judgmental topic words to define the topics that need to be resolved. And we're looking to frame them in unbiased ways. So if one person's talking about what we really need to do with this mess is we need to get a maid. We need to get a cleaner to come and we need to pay them to help clean the house. and the other person's saying, no, we need to each divide up the chores. We need a little chore wheel and we need a chore chart and we just need to divide it up ourselves. Then the topic is not chores because that takes one person's side. The topic is cleaning or housekeeping, and they each have their idea of how it should go. Now let's say there's a mom and a teenager that are fighting about chores. The chores need to be done every week. No, the chores can be done every 2 weeks. Well, once a week. No, every 2 weeks. Then the topic can be chores because they both agree that the chores are the issue, but they just disagree about how the chores should happen. So you're basically looking for a topic word as you're fighting or as the people you're working with are fighting that is actually an unbiased, concrete frame on what they're talking about. It does not take anyone's side. Does that make sense? Any questions about finding a topic word during a conflict? Okay, we're going to get some practice. Who can read about values or what's important?
I can go again if that's okay.
Thank you.
What's important? Values are usually phrased as one or two key positive words reflecting the needs, goals, and values participants express. Listening for values helps you hear what's important to participants in the midst of blame, language, insults, name calling, etc. Be sure to listen for values that focus on what the participant is saying is important to them, not focusing on what they dislike about others, their position. Often you can hear values very clearly out of an insult a participant is making about someone else. Example, speaker, how come I'm the only one who has to do what I'm supposed to do? You're supposed to be their father. How do you make a decision, take on a tough role, or do what you say you'll do? Avoid focusing on what the speaker doesn't like about the others. He isn't doing his job as a father, etc. Hear what's important to the speaker: accountability, responsibility, follow through. Sometimes it can be challenging to think of the value words that capture the participant's needs using the words that sound positive. The goal is to work on understanding the wants, goals people express in a way that is not loaded where possible. Example, because she slashed my tires, she needed to get what was coming to her. Since I went through having to miss work to get my car fixed, she should have to see what that feels like. So that's right, I put a brick through her windshield. Value being expressed could be revenge, payback, etc. And be sure to take note of value words like understanding, justice, and fairness as well. Examples of what's important: respect, honesty, flexibility, safety, convenience, integrity, obedience, order, politeness, relationship.
Okay, so a value is a positive word. It's a positive underlying value that the person is expressing. And almost always, if you hear an insult or a threat, there is a positive value underneath it. They're saying what they don't like, and that is showing what it is that they really would rather have. So a positive value is what we're going to reflect back out of what we hear, and we're going to check for understanding. So oftentimes reflecting values back to people that are having a conflict, either if it's the person you're having a conflict with or two people that you're serving that are having conflict or supervising, it really is a very, very, very empowering piece. I think it's one of the most powerful pieces in conflict resolution is to reflect back people's values because it gives them a roadmap of where it is that they do want to go. And it kind of gives a glimmer of hope to the situation. Any questions about reflecting values? All right, so
I'm sorry,
yeah,
it took me a
Nikki.
little bit to find my mute. So you're saying that it's typically a positive word, but at the same time it says that it could be expressed as revenge or payback. Is that like the example of what not to do kind of thing? Or
if somebody is going over and over and over and over and over again about how they need to pay someone back, it would be okay to reflect back the value of payback. But
Okay.
basically, it's really when they're talking about giving someone what's coming to them, they're talking about wanting fairness and justice. And so try reflecting that first. And if that doesn't work, then you can use their language of payback. So it's a dialogue, and I'm gonna model that in a minute. So the first thing I want to do is to first just re-summarize. We're taking a positional statement and we're breaking it into 3 parts: feelings, values or what's important, and topics to be resolved in the conflict. So I would like to go into character. I'm going to do a vent about a situation that my character is in, and I want you to take notes and listen for the feelings, values, and topics to be resolved. And then I'm going to call on people afterward. So I'd like for everyone here to be taking notes. In your folder, there is a note-taking document, which is labeled for notes. And I'm going to pull mine up. So as soon as we're done, I'm going to be asking you what is in your notes: feelings, values, and topics to be resolved. You do not need to take notes on my positions that I'm going to be expressing. But you should take notes on the feeling words you hear, the positive value words you hear, and the concrete topics to be resolved. Okay?
Sorry, just for clarity, are we taking notes in your notes document or are we taking notes on our own?
It's up to you. The notes document is meant to be helpful, and if you don't want to use it, that's totally fine too. Whatever's easiest for you. Some people prefer to write with a pen.
Okay.
I know I do. But here we are on Zoom. So I'm going to go into character now, and I'm going to shout, and you're going to, even though I'm going to be nasty and shouting, you're going to be listening very, very hard to find feelings, values, and topics to be resolved in the conflict, okay? Well, I don't think that I can work with him anymore. That's my point. My point is that I don't think that it's even anyone should have to work with him. I cannot even tell you the number of times that I have been in front of a group trying to get some work done, trying to facilitate, trying to teach, and he will talk over me, and he will talk over me, and he will talk over me. He will interrupt me in the middle of my flow. It's like it knocks me off my game every single time. I can't even tell you how many times he has cut me off and mansplained and told what the real answer is, or did I ever think of this? I mean, it is seriously, it's like he thinks I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. He is 100% sexist. And I am so disgusted having to work with him. I don't even think that if I had a new person that I hired and brought into this organization, there is no way that I would want them to have to work with this person. I mean, it is just, and you know what's really fucking kills me about him is that he's like all sensitive ponytail man. Like we're all supposed to think he's like this great hippie, and he's like all so anti-racist bullshit. I've heard him say racist things in the hallway when he thinks everyone can hear. And I mean, and not only that, but he is just like constantly blowing up my phone. He's got an idea about this. He's got an idea about this. It's like, I would like some family time in the evening. I do not want to be hearing from you all day long, all the time. I mean, it's basically ego. It's like the whole world needs to hear every single thing that's in his mind at all times. It's just, I've had enough. Okay. End of scene. What do you hear in terms of feelings?
Disgust.
Exacerbation.
Okay.
Sexist.
Frustration. Blank.
Unsupported.
Devalued.
Can you see my chart now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I heard frustrated, unsupported, devalued, and I know I missed several others.
Exasperation.
Disgusted?
Good. What else?
Angry.
Thank you. Don't ignore the simple ones, the pure kind of simple raw emotion words. What else?
Annoyed.
Yeah. What else?
Belittled.
Very good one for this character. I think that's very, very accurate. And you can see how there's like all different shades of the same concept. And there's also kind of like a thermometer you could do about anger, where there's like anger, and then above that is irate and furious. Below it, you can have annoyed, irritated, peeved. And so it kind of goes in this whole spectrum. And you want to hit it at the level that they were expressing. What else?
Disrespected?
What else?
Exhausted.
Yeah. That's a good one. I oftentimes, when people are in conflict, I often find myself reflecting tired or exhausted.
Set up.
Unheard.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit like overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. What else?
Defeated.
What about like if I'm training or teaching, facilitating, and I get interrupted? What is the feeling there?
Undermined.
That's a really good one here. What else?
Irritated.
Mm-hmm. What else? There's kind of like a simple one that's about like cut off or blocked or something.
Not good enough.
Incompetent.
Did you say incompetent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that I believe is her position, is that he thinks she's incompetent. Did she feel incompetent?
No, I guess not. She felt more frustrated and embarrassed maybe at his.
Yes, embarrassed is a really good one, because she did talk about like how humiliating it was, and not wanting to bring other people into his presence. What positions did she hold? What were her opinions?
He's a sexist, racist.
Okay, these are the positions and the opinions that the character has. And in inclusive listening, we are not going to reflect those back to them, but it's important for us to hear them and understand them. What else?
He's egotistical.
What else?
He's a mansplainer.
I was thinking just like very simple of like, he's just difficult to get along with, difficult personality.
He's relentless, calling me all the time, anytime he wants.
Great. Those are all pieces of it that you heard accurately in terms of the character's position. All right, now what were the character's positive values that you heard? What was important to this character?
Acceptance,
Validation.
Respect,
Authenticity,
Equality.
collaboration,
Communication.
What came after equality?
collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
boundaries,
predictability.
How so?
She wants to know, when he'll call, like she wants things to be predictable, not
Mm.
somebody else's.
I was thinking like organized. So like when there's organization, then there's predictability in a way because there's structure.
Well, I'm not sure about these ones because to me, this seems like we're getting a little bit into analysis. So what did she actually say about the calling and texting?
She values family time.
Very good. She wants to be able to focus on her family after work. What else?
Integrity.
How so?
It seems like the fact that he constantly speaks over her and doesn't give her the opportunity to speak. It's something that goes against her integrity, and she feels that no one should have to work with him because of his behaviors.
Mm-hmm. A way that I really heard integrity from this character was that the coworker pretended to be anti-racist, but then would say racist things behind closed doors. So there was no integrity in terms of the and someone else said authenticity, like telling their truth. What else?
Justice.
Yeah. What about like getting cut off or interrupted, or he took away my flow? What would that be?
Respectfulness.
Yeah, we have respect. That's a
Oh.
big part of this for sure.
Like being letting, like it's like, so when I heard you, I was also hearing that she just wanted to lead her whatever it was that she was working on, and he kept interfering with that.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's a word for
Mhm.
Could it be a work ethic?
Or focus.
Yeah, I think hard work is important to her. And then
Maybe
just kind
focus.
of like flow, being able to finish.
I think that comes down to also like letting other people have the spotlight, or like allowing your
Mhm.
coworker their moment too, in a way. Like, I don't know.
Yes, that's very good. Sharing the spotlight. And topics. What are some concrete topics that you heard her talking about?
I said office.
Communication.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Okay, so boundaries to me is we have that under values. So having that it's important to have boundaries in a relationship. What is a concrete topic that she was talking about?
About work, her job.
Work hours.
Work family balance.
The workplace
Okay, so we could
environment.
say work schedule.
Office norms.
So we're looking for something concrete that they can resolve. So what do they want norms about?
Well, I was gonna say workplace environment, but that might be too vague, so workplace interactions.
Okay, you could do workplace interactions. I think there's some specifics about training or teaching together. So I would say, I would ask some more questions of these people and say, is this about trainings? Is this about meetings? But mainly it's all under communication. There's phone communication, there's communication within when collaborating on a training or a meeting. Okay, good. Really, really good job. So the next thing we're going to do is to practice this in small groups. So Natalie has been hard at work behind the scenes making your breakout groups, and she is going to release you for 7 minutes. The youngest person in the group is going to vent. Is everyone ready to go into their breakout groups? Everybody get ready. Here we go. So the youngest person in the group is going to vent about the worst class they ever had. Sorry, the worst teacher they ever had. And you're going to vent for 1 minute. So let someone else in the group time you. And then the next person is going to listen for and reflect back feelings. The person after that is going to listen for and reflect back values. And the person after that is going to listen for and reflect back topics only. Okay. Any questions about how this is going to work? So we're going to do a 1 minute, very intense venting about the worst teacher you ever had. If they are here at the Rutgers School of Social Work, call them by a fake name. All right, you ready? All right, here we go into our breakouts. You're going to be automatically pulled back in 7 minutes. You can pop back into the main room if you have a question.
I'm muted and I'm talking to you.
I went into a room with Cherabelle and then I was pulled out. She had one other person, but they were kind of silent.
Yeah, there's another person in there. So I did it because what's happening is people are coming in and out of the Zoom. And so when I put it to set for 4 people per group, it was set and then people left. And then it just went to crap.
There are so many things I'm thinking about to do differently next time. Back, how did that go? Seeing some thumbs up?
I was nervous.
What'd you say? You were nervous?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's nerve-wracking to practice new skills. How did it feel to vent out about your bad teacher?
I didn't like it.
What didn't you like about it?
I'm just not a venter. I'm not I'm that person that was avoiding in the household, you know, like I'm the person who didn't, or the peacekeeper. Like I didn't get angry. I wasn't,
Okay.
So like venting was just like really awkward for me. And I felt like I couldn't give them enough information. Like, I don't know.
Interesting. All right. So what were some, I'm going to go ahead and share again. What were some feelings that you heard and that got that were accurate, that landed for the venter and seemed like they were right? What were the feeling words you heard or that you said?
Frustrated.
Overwhelmed.
Used.
Disappointment.
Anger.
Go ahead.
Belittle.
Anger.
Violated. Dismissed.
Anger.
Unsupported.
Underappreciated.
Intimidated.
Cheated.
Abused.
Ashamed.
Abused, ashamed, cheated. Excellent. So getting the intensity of what people are sharing and looking for that really accurate word that's at the correct level of intensity or expression. And I'm hearing some really specific words, but also not ignoring the kind of basic raw emotion of angry or sad or fearful. What positive values did you hear?
Communication.
Justice, communication.
Safety.
I think I'm hearing that safety is important to you. What else?
Respect.
Work
Sounds like
ethic.
respect is what you're looking for. What else?
Work ethic.
Work ethic or hard work is important to you.
Integrity and trust.
I think I'm hearing that integrity and trust are some of your values.
Equity.
What's that?
Equity.
Good. And making sure that you're hearing the details of what they're saying and also putting it in the plainest language that you can that's also accurate. What else? Anything about learning or education or?
We had one that like, it was hard to put into like just a 1-word or 2-word value, but it was like this idea that you kind of trust teachers to take care of kids and to support kids.
Mm-hmm. Support. Taking care of kids.
Maybe like what's it called? Oh my God, I just lost the word. When you look up to somebody. Like a coach or anything like that. Thank you.
Admiration.
A role, like a positive role model, like the expectation of positive role models within a teacher.
Good. What were some concrete topics that your venter vented about that were concrete, unbiased frames on the topics to be resolved?
Classroom structure.
The student-teacher role.
Schedule.
Accommodations.
Teaching.
Accommodations.
Yeah, accommodations.
Did they use the word accommodations or was that your perspective on what they needed?
I believe she used the word accommodations.
Okay, great. So with accommodations, that's an example of something where it could be a topic or it could be a possible solution, which we're going to talk more about solutions next week. But make sure when you reflect back a topic that you're not reflecting back one person's preferred solution, because that's when you become biased and judgmental, and people can tend to shut down when that happens if you're a go-between. Okay, accommodation. What else? Other concrete topics that you heard?
Teaching methods.
Anything else? Assignments, grades,
Communication.
anything like that?
Communication.
How teachers discipline children, because this was a kind of grade middle school experience.
So that could be discipline, that could be student behavior. Try to think of the plainest language you can that isn't using the school's jargon or lingo. If it were like you were helping to resolve conflict between a student and teacher, you would want to use the plainest language possible that would be an acceptable language for both the student and the teacher. Good. Okay, you guys did awesome. I want to go over the structure of a reflection and then we'll practice it next time we meet. So we're going to end by talking about the reflection structure that we use in inclusive listening. The first step is to completely let the speaker finish. And this is at the bottom of the note-taking sheet. Then to use a distancing phrase. And when I use a distancing phrase, I'm actually physically picturing myself. This is me taking a kind of a step out of it, and not diagnosing the person, not putting my opinions on the person, but just putting a little bit of distance and boundary between me and that person. So it sounds like what I think I'm hearing is, am I getting this? So it's basically you coming in humble submission to try to build understanding. So you're coming and trying to only understand what they're saying, not tell them about themselves or diagnose them or share opinions or suggestions, but just humbly seeking understanding. So it sounds like what I think I'm hearing is, am I getting this right? Is it that? Then you're going to say a summary of what you heard, summary of the feelings, values, and topics that seem appropriate at that moment. And then conclude with a check-in phrase. So a check-in phrase is going to be, did I get that? Am I getting this? Did I get that right? Was that it? Just a really, really quick little bump of a phrase that is showing that you would like them to answer back. You would like to create a dialogue. You would like them to correct you. So when we meet next week, we'll start by practicing the feelings, values, and topics in the form of a reflection. So what I think I'm hearing is that you were feeling belittled when it came to the homework. Am I getting that right? So that's what it sounds like. You can use a distancing phrase, put one or two feelings or values or topics, and then use a quick check-in phrase. Okay, and that's what it's going to sound like when we do inclusive listening. We'll practice one more time when we get together in 2 weeks. All right. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Any questions before we break up and come back on the 15th?
I just had a quick question. When you say summarize, is that where we put in like the topic?
Sometimes you would do a topic. If they just had a whole emotional venting, you might just reflect like 4 feelings that you heard. Or if they're really talking about a lot of insults and threats, you might be listening for 2 or 3 values. It really depends on the context of what the person's saying or what the people are saying to each other. So you're going to grab, 1 or 2. You could do 1 of each. You could do just 3 values. It really depends on the context.
Okay. And then my other question is, let the speaker finish.
Yeah.
So I run an anger management group.
Oh, cool. I want to hear more about that later.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I know group is definitely different than when you're doing individual, but if you only have 45 minutes and you have 2 people, you want to hear both sides, not sides, but both opinions or perspectives. How is there a point where you interrupt or pause, or like, like in anger management, we use pause a lot. Pause there, take a breath, let's summarize and get feedback. And so I don't know. I have just questions about that.
Yeah. If I'm doing an actual mediation, I will never interrupt the participants. But I will hear, like when I hear them take a breath or a tiny pause, I might jump in if it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But if I'm having my own argument, of course, I'm, interrupting, and I can do, I'll wait for them to finish, but I can still reflect even if I'm kind of jumping in. So if I'm doing an actual formal mediation, or if I'm helping other people resolve a conflict, I will never interrupt. But you can learn to come in on a breath. And you can also start, and they'll hear you starting and stopping, and then they'll stop for you usually. So if I say like that, they'll sort of turn toward me and make a break. If they hear me try to start on a breath, and that's what I find ends up happening if there's a lot of if there's no room to get in.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions as we wrap up? I really appreciate you guys coming. It's so great to meet you.